There is a group of 100 million Americans who do not participate in the electoral process. The prevailing logic, for staying home, is that the decisions made in Washington are disconnected from the survival of the average household. However, an audit of the Trump administration's signature policies suggests that abstaining from the process has become an expensive choice. While this group remained silent, a specific set of decisions began generating a direct financial penalty for the average citizen. The math behind three specific policy shifts, aggressive tariffs, military escalation in Iran, and the decline of international tourism, reveals approximately $373 billion in cumulative economic damage. To understand what a $373 billion hit actually looks like, you have to look at the individual level. When that total is distributed across the country, it represents $2,784 taken directly from the budget of every American household. That $2,784 is not a theoretical economic projection. It is a tangible loss of liquidity. To see how that money disappeared, we have to itemize the bill. The first major expense on the ledger comes from trade policy. The initial promise of the tariff program was to protect American jobs and force a resurgence in domestic manufacturing. Instead, the policy resulted in a $180 billion contraction of the U.S. GDP in 2025 alone. This happened because tariffs function as a domestic tax on consumption. When the government places a fee on imports, the cost is added to groceries, clothing, and electronics. Every trip to the store reflects the weight of this trade friction. The data shows that the average household is now paying an additional $2,000 per year just to maintain their standard of living under these conditions. As the price at the checkout counter continues to climb, public support is eroding. Recent polling indicates that 63% of Americans now oppose these tariffs. Far from an abstract tool of statecraft, these trade barriers act as a mandatory annual fee on every family's survival. The second item on the bill is tied to military escalation in the Middle East, specifically the heightened conflict with Iran. Sustaining this level of regional tension requires immense capital. Over $72 billion in U.S. military spending has been committed to these operations. But the direct military budget is only part of the cost. Foreign instability creates volatility in the global markets for gas and food, driving prices higher for basic domestic needs. These localized price spikes add an additional $1,000 to the annual expenses of every household. When you combine the direct military expenditures with the indirect cost to consumers, the total economic damage reaches $134 billion. This is a $134 billion opportunity cost. That capital was diverted away from infrastructure, education, and housing, and moved into a region where the outcomes remain uncertain. The final portion of the bill is being paid by small towns and local economies that depend on the flow of international visitors. In 2025, international visits to the U.S. dropped by 4 million. Canadian travel alone fell by 22%, creating a significant void at border crossings and local hubs. This triggered an $8.4 billion loss in tourist spending. Hotels lost bookings, restaurants lost seasonal customers, and tour companies lost their revenue. Political isolationism has a tangible local footprint. It effectively crushes the businesses that depend on a connected world. When we total the tariff burden, the conflict-driven price spikes, and the collapse of local tourism, the result is an annual apathy tax of nearly $3,000 per household. This environment exists because 100 million people chose not to influence the direction of these policies. This group has the numbers to shift the country's economic priorities, yet they remain the silent funders of these decisions. In 2026, the ballot functions as a direct check on these household costs. It is the primary mechanism available to stop the automatic deduction from your bank account. If even a fraction of those 100 million people participate, they alter the demographic math enough to halt these spending patterns. Their sheer numbers represent a shift in the economic balance of power. Policy directly dictates your personal bank balance. In 2026, staying home is a luxury that few Americans can afford.
Join the 100M movement, and let's do extraordinary together.